This conference will now be recorded.
On the other side of the street, you mean?
No, right down to you, two down to your
Oh,
right.
the greenhouse.
Greenhouse. Yeah,
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know that. Okay. That
Yeah.
would look great on that house. Sure.
yeah, and I was talking to him today because he having the roof done, so I was over there today.
Okay. Okay. That would finish off the front of that house. Sure. That'd look nice.
That house has had a lot of additions to it over time.
Yes, it has. It's a gump house underneath all of them.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Hi, Renee. Hey,
Thank you,
Renee, I
George.
was just telling Steve that tomorrow I'm meeting with your next door neighbor to talk to him about reconstructing the porch across the front of that house.
At 36 Monroe?
36, right.
Oh, it looks so good.
It'll look great. He says he's going to move there with his wife.
Really?
That's what he told me today.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't, they started painting it and it's like it's a whole new house over there. It's amazing what a fresh coat of paint will do on the outside.
It's been a long time since that house has been painted.
Yeah, they completely gutted the interior because there'd been a water line break, first off. It was all knob and tube wiring. It was galvanized plumbing. I mean, it was a mess.
Wow. Yeah, you can see it now that they took down some of the trees, that the overgrown tree and shrub that were in front of the window. You can see straight in there. I can't wait to see what they're doing. I'm not a rule breaker, so I haven't gone up to the windows to look, but I really want to.
I don't think I could resist if I lived next door.
I'm always afraid like someone will be in there or be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm the neighbor. It's okay."
Hey.
I'll take you in for when I do an inspection. You can be my assistant.
All right, fair enough.
Hi, Lily.
Hello. Bob, you passed my daughter and I at the corner of Jeff Road and Sutherland at about, I guess it was about 4 o'clock. We were out walking the dog.
Oh, okay. And I didn't see you. I was on my way I did a quick workout before this meeting, so I was on my way to the gym.
Somebody is really being a good pedestrian observer over there. And then I saw you and it all made sense.
Well, I better. I am going to be a hypocrite. Okay, it's 6:30, so why don't we call the meeting to order? Dan is here now, so let's go ahead. I'll make a motion to call our meeting to order. Do I have a second?
Lanfear, second.
Thank you. Dorothea, would you call a vote, please?
Sure. Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Galusha? Frank, can you hear us? Trustee Lanfear?
Lanfear, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Frank, can you hear us? We can't hear you. We're not getting Frank. He's speaking, but I'm not getting his words.
Frank, you're not plugged in.
I'm plugging it in, but
Oh,
it's.
now we hear you.
Now we can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Okay.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. The first thing I want to announce tonight is in, let's see, late September, I believe. We applied for an award for the innovative approach that was used for our comprehensive plan and simultaneous zoning code update. We actually won the award in planning practice from the Upstate New York chapter of the American Planning Association. So congratulations to everyone on this board. I'd especially like to recognize Lily Lanfear and former trustee Peggy Brzee, who did so much research with Maria Rudzinski on the legal issues associated with the moratorium, what the parameters were, and all of the initial steps in research that they did to get this process starting. I'd also like to recognize Renee, who served on the Comprehensive Plan Committee and infused the entire process with her lens on walkability. And lastly, I'd like to recognize Tom Cummings, who is the chair of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, did an outstanding job organizing the work and keeping everybody on schedule. And I said lastly, but I'd also like to recognize the extensive work that the planning board did because of their thorough review of the code. Number one, there were fewer mistakes. We have a better code in the process, and they put an extraordinary amount of work and effort into that. So I think we can all pat ourselves on the back. It was a job well done, and it's something that has put the village in a better position. Okay, that
I'd
being
also like to acknowledge Frank, who worked on this as well.
well, and yourself, Dan. I think all the trustees worked on it. And
It's just weird to sort of acknowledge everybody but Frank and me, so thank you.
I acknowledge the board at the beginning, and then certainly you and Frank and Dave Ferris, who was also on the board during part of the process. Everybody deserves credit. I was just trying to highlight those that really made an extraordinary effort. So thank you, everybody. Okay, all right, so moving on. We'll start with the building inspector's report. Steve?
Bob, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? Can
You
we
can.
skip ahead to my area and do the insurance renewal with Gary Wilkins?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, because Gary is here. Gary Wilkins, our insurance carrier, is on this call, and he's going to give us an overview of the review that he and Dorothea conducted in his recommendation on our insurance. So I'll turning it over to Dorothea and Gary.
Gary, I'll let you lead this one.
Okay, thank you, Dorothea. Thank you, board and all included, for letting me into the meeting here to talk about the village insurance. I want to thank Dorothea because we went out to the market to look at all the possible options for the village for the November 22nd renewal date. And you would think that there's one application that all the companies would accept and work off. Definitely not true. They all have their own forms that need to be completed. And so Dorothea was outstanding at completing each form, which is local knowledge. I can't complete them for the village, and getting them to us in time so we could get out there to the marketplace. And the companies, they all want generally at least 30 days. So we've been working on this for a couple months. They want 30 days of seeing a full submission to offer a proposal for it and put their best foot forward. So what we did is we went out to the marketplace to all the insurance carriers that will write smaller municipalities and provide the quality coverage, at a competitive price. We ended up getting proposals from 4 carriers. From the current one, who is most of the coverage currently is with Selective Insurance. We also have proposals from Neimer, Trident, and the Glatfelder Group. So those are the ones that will competitively and comprehensively provide coverage for a smaller municipality. I met with Dorothea this morning, and I gave her all the proposals, which she has a copy of each one. And then what I did is I made up a spreadsheet for her. So from the spreadsheet, we could just compare the numbers on the spreadsheet. And from a number standpoint, the total cost ranged from 32.2 to 39.4. So yeah, there was some grouping there of premium. From a coverage standpoint, I had made up a separate sheet and reviewed with Dorothea that my recommendation is not the lowest price. The lowest price has a couple of shortcomings in coverage, which would be a real hardship for the village if there was a claim in that area. As an example, several years ago, the mayor probably remembers, I can't remember who else was on the board at that time, but there was a claim where the public officials liability policy, it wasn't a claim made for money, it was a claim for the village to change their decision on something. It was the Monroe Avenue project up by the canal. And there is on the policy what is called a non-monetary defense cost. And this provides the money to fight back and push back when someone makes a claim for you to change your position on something. And the company we had it with had the most that anyone provides, which is $50,000 limit. And the village went through that limit. It was a bigger claim. Now the carrier that had the lowest price on the total package of coverage only has a $5,000 limit for that. So looking at the history, I didn't feel it would be good for the village to go with a carrier that's only going to provide a $5,000 limit on this non-monetary defense costs insurance. So what we have done, my recommendation is we go with the second lowest pricing, which is a combination of two companies. It's Selective Insurance Company, who has written most of the coverage for the village for several years. And for the public officials liability, stay with a company we have called Greenwich. And Greenwich will provide that $50,000 non-monetary defense cost. None others would go above 25 on that. So the bottom line is that the Selective Greenwich proposal is about $2,000 higher than the low bidder, but the lower bidder doesn't provide the protection that I feel the village needs. Another thing that the incumbent Selective provides that no one else will provide in the marketplace is most companies, any medium or heavyweight vehicle, they will provide replacement cost coverage on if it's 10 years old or newer. Once they get more than 10 years old, they go by actual cash value. So they take into account depreciation. So if you've got an 11-year-old heavy duty truck, which Zach, I know you have a 2009 on your fleet, and that became an 11-year-old vehicle this year. If that were to be lost in a claim, then they would only get depreciated value for that. And the trucks, I had one happen in another municipality several years ago, where the truck that burned up in the highway garage was a $120,000 truck to replace. And because we had it insured for that number and it was less than 10 years old, they got the 120 to go out and buy a new one, even though it was a 10-year-old truck. And what Selective has done that no one else will do is, as long as the older vehicles are stored in the highway garage, if there were to be a fire there or a claim and it wipes out the fleet, they'll pay replacement cost on all those vehicles. And that would be a real financial hardship for the village if you're only getting depreciated dollars for those older vehicles if they were to be lost in a fire. And they are the only company that will do that. So for those two reasons in particular, my strong recommendation is that we use the combination of Selective for the package policy and Greenwich for the public officials policy. So in a nutshell, that's it. What questions can I answer for anyone?
Just so the board knows, I did include the spreadsheet and the coverage comments in your last packet for you to review.
Okay. Good. So
Any questions for Gary? If not, I will make a motion to accept Gary's recommendation for a choice for our insurance carrier in the coming year. I have a second.
You broke up there. Did you get that, Dorothea?
Yes, he was making a recommendation to accept Gary's recommendations for insurance coverage for the coming year.
I'll second that.
Okay, trustee Stetser,
That's our aye.
Trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion
Thank you,
passes.
Gary.
Thank you, Gary. Is there anything you need me to sign? Let me know and I'll get it done for you Thursday.
Thank you for including me in the meeting. And again, I want to thank Dorothea. She did a lot of legwork in getting all these forms and information updated so that the companies could come through and put their best foot forward for the village, which is to the village's advantage. So thank you to the village for your continued business.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care.
Thank
Okay,
you.
now moving back to the building inspector's report. Steve Lath.
Off?
Cloth.
Yeah. Like I just started yesterday, Bob.
I know. It's a Freudian slip.
All right. Everybody should have my report, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Any questions with the report?
No.
No? All right,
Nope.
couple things I wanted to add. I talked to the fire department. I got a call from the planning board in regards to the fire department. I have reached out to the fire department to have them do a site plan for all the work that's being done there. I didn't want to create enemies, but I talked to Bob Ockenden, and he seems pretty amicable to applying and doing a new site plan for the work that they did. They've done extensive work on and extended the parking lot behind the fire hall. So I wanted to inform of that. And I have reached out to a contractor, a local contractor that's been doing some great work in the village to get an estimate on the ticket booth. So we can pursue that avenue again to replace the ticket booth. He told me by the beginning of next week, he'll have an estimate for me to replace that booth.
Okay, I have a question, Steve.
Yep.
Do you have specs for the ticket booth or a design or anything that he's basing his estimate on?
I have a picture. I have a picture of the original ticket booth and looking at it and judging, I believe it's just an 8x10 building. One side has an opening for the sales and a man door on the other side. It's basically a box, but it has to look historic because of the style of shiplap and a cedar roof that was on it. So I do have.
And the other distinctive detail, Steve, would be there's special brackets. The eaves are extended, there's rafter tails, and then there's decorative brackets.
Right, okay. All right, so I'll get an estimate hopefully next week, and then we'll go from there and see what happens.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I had a couple questions for you.
Yep.
One was about, so in your report, you said failed no smoke CO on 37 South Main failed their final inspection. Which building is that? Who is that?
That's Bob Michaels, and it's going to be a new hair salon, and that has been taken care of, and I will be doing a final on that as soon as I receive the final electric.
Okay. And then the other thing I'd love for you to touch on, because you and I talked about this offline, and I thought it was an interesting topic, which was the people who put solar panels in their yard over on Jefferson, and kind of wanted to talk through and make sure everybody was in the, I don't know, everybody might be in the loop on this already. A resident called me with questions about it, and it was kind of an interesting topic. So I'd love to turn it over to you to give a quick update on that.
Actually, the array is completed in the backyard. The homeowner took it upon themselves to plant arborvitaes. They're rather small right now. It's going to take a while for the screening. It's very visible right now through the winter months. And then when those arborvitaes grow up there, I believe you'll have plenty of screening from Jefferson Road. But I mean, I personally think it's a good thing. We're all trying to go green. We're trying to be self-sufficient. The woman works from home, so she's guaranteed herself an option to be able to work in case something happens with the power. I'm hoping that the trustees and all the other boards are on board with trying to do solar either on roofs if they're not very evident, or a yard array if the land will hold it.
I think the the process worked out well, and I think just to give everybody some background here, when the HPB faced their first application with solar panels on the roof of the house on Washington Avenue, they did some researching the National Park Service's standards for rehabilitation and how to apply those for something modern like a solar array. Those standards have been in place, I think, about 2 or 3 years now, and they applied them again to this project and based the application based on the visibility, if the location of the array would have an impact on the historic structure, the context of a historic building, and that was the basis of the decision that was made by the HPB.
Yeah, the other thing about a solar array like the one in the yard, it is completely reversible and removable. It's on 4 posts, and if it ever came to it and whatever next owner didn't want it, you won't never even notice or realize it was ever there. You know, you pop the posts out of the ground and it's like the thing never existed.
Yeah, and Steve, the way you put it last time was that we talked 1-to-1 was it's really not a lot different than putting a trampoline in the yard. It's kind of ugly, but hey, who cares? The other thing that I love putting this idea out there, I don't know why we perceive collectively, not the people on this call, just collectively, solar panels as being ugly. I think they're quite beautiful. They tell a good story, and also power lines are ugly. So, you know, hopefully we can all come to love solar panels. So thanks.
Yeah, but I think the issue though, Dan, the preservation board doesn't look at aesthetics. It's not an issue of personal taste. It's an issue of whether the improvement is compatible based on the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation with the historic resource. That could be a landscape, that could be a streetscape, it could be the canal, it could be a building. So, you know, sometimes they often have to put their personal taste aside because they may be reviewing something for a building with an architectural style that personally they don't like, but that isn't the question. The question is, how does it impact the historic resource? And that's the standard that's used by the 154 historic preservation boards that are certified by SHPO throughout New York State, as well as the thousands of other ones throughout the United States.
Yeah, and as Dan said, this really is no different than if they put a giant play set in the backyard. I mean, it has a better value to the home, but you know, as far as size wise and what it does to the property, no different than a big trampoline or a play set in the backyard. So I'm very glad that the board decided and allowed them to put it in. And I mean, like I said, it'll take a while for the screening to come up, but the other choice was the people. They had a arborist come and do an estimate, and they were looking at $9,000 to $10,000 to put trees in. So at that point, the woman was like, I'm not, you know, spending money on an array and $10,000. So they took it upon themselves to do their own trees, which I thought was very commendable by the family.
I agree, and those trees will grow fast, and Arbor Vitae do, so I think it will. And I agree with you. I think it's a great way to become more sustainable. We're going to see more of it in the future. I think it's something that's needed and something that can be accommodated in the village.
Yep. The other items I think were that I have in regards to Shane Place, I believe is going to be a discussion later in the meeting. Correct?
Okay. We could handle it now. I think we might as well do it now because everybody's here and Jenny Collins is tuned in. So I think maybe we should do it now.
Okay. I've been talking with Justin and Jeff and I and doing a lot of research in regards to this possible pavilion down in Shane Place. And I've made a determination that this will be an accessory structure to the property, not a assembly use, but an accessory structure to the Collins' property. This is solely a Collins application. Regardless of anything else in that down in that Shane Place area, This is an accessory structure applied by Mrs. Collins that is their structure, but will be allowed for public use. I think it's a great thing. I think it will greatly help the businesses survive. We saw how well it worked down in the area during the summer, during the pandemic, and allowed some of those people to still survive and pay their employees and their own livelihoods. So I'm hoping that we can all figure out a way to allow this to happen. I got a suggestion from Dorothea and I forwarded that to Mrs. Collins. In the meantime, while this process is going on to hopefully approve this pavilion, put a tent up down there for now to allow the businesses to extend their season. I really think we need to do whatever we can to help these businesses so we don't end up with some empty holes. It'll be a horrible trickle down effect to, not only businesses, but families, village families and beyond. I'd like to ask the board to look into in the idea for Lock 32 to be able to also utilize this. I would like to suggest that the Tavern Overlay District be extended to the edge of Aladdin's, because right now, the zoning, when it was changed, the Tavern Overlay District ends at the wall of Lock 32. So technically, they cannot utilize and serve out there. So that's something I would ask the board to look into. And then at the suggestion of Justin, the other item I would like to look into would be to possibly change or remove the buildings and structures between the roadway and the canal from parking requirements.
And I want to speak to that because this also involves some other conversations I've had both with Justin from the planning board as well as Steve. I've asked both of them to sort of make a list of things they've found in the new code that are ambiguous or where there are conflicts. And both of them have suggested some other changes as well as the ones that Steve has mentioned tonight. I talked to Justin a bit this morning about the potential of relieving parking requirements in that little section that Steve just mentioned. I think that might be a good idea, and I want to just explain a little bit more why. Just like the continuity on South Main Street in the Main Street Business District, there's a need for continuity on Shane Place because it's our waterfront. And whereas years ago, they actually tore a building down and created a parking lot, I think given the importance to the village of the waterfront as a destination, to treat that area, we can accommodate parking in that district. We don't want to lose buildings to accommodate more parking. So I think sort of the same flexibility, and this is something that's being done in urban districts around the country to promote walkability and make parking secondary. If you have good anchor businesses, things like Aladdin's, like Lock 32, people will walk there. They are willing to do it. The distances are far less than we do every time we go to Wegmans. So I actually support thinking about somehow doing what Steve and Justin have suggested of relieving the parking requirements in this area to make sure that we have a dense, active waterfront and the parking is relegated to the periphery instead of in the prime space.
Right. What I would suggest, so in that, because there isn't enough space to accommodate the parking that's supposedly required under the code, but I still would recommend that we put 2 handicap parking spaces right there because there are none on that side of the street. And that would allow any handicap spaces for Aladdin's, for Lock 32, and for access to the canalway.
And I'd also mention here, Steve, that Jennifer Collins has submitted several different designs, which working with Jennifer, Steve has been troubleshooting to sort of fine tune that to address some of the functional and code problems on there to come up with a design that I think in the long run is really going to be quite an amenity down on the waterfront.
So my question to this, so Steve, thank you so much. That was all very well said, and I couldn't agree with you more. My question is, how do we break this apart into a bunch of pieces? Because there's a lot of stuff going on here. We just talked about overlay district for bars and I forget the other one.
Yeah, really.
Parking, a temporary tent, changes to the code. How do we break this apart into manageable pieces so that we can take action that is meaningful for our businesses down there?
Right.
I just don't
Well,
want
I
to
think
talk
we
down and-
already have the code in place for the temporary tent. So that Steve's idea is a good one because that can just go ahead and give Lock 32 and the other businesses down in the Collins property, a relief valve during this COVID crisis.
Great, so we can cross that one off the list. What do you guys feel is the next most important thing for us to address?
Right. The one caveat of the tent and something that was brought up today, people can grab from Lock 32 and utilize it, but Lock 32 technically right now, because it isn't in a tavern overlay, cannot serve in the tent. I hate even saying this, but we dodged a bullet. In the summertime, I believe Lock 32 was sending people out there during the summer. It's technically not in the tavern overlay. So I don't know how legal that was. I mean, it's said and done and gone, but in the future, I think it has to be, I have to talk with Casey and make sure that no servers can go out there, but people can purchase at Lock 32, then go into the tent and relax and enjoy. But because it's not in the tavern overlay, that has to be adjusted, which is, I think, first and foremost. And I think the code issues is one encompassing thing. We should get together as a group, or with a planning board or somehow somebody spearheading and be the focal point for all of the discrepancies that I found, and I believe Justin's found, and if anybody else has found any in the code.
The challenge
I've talked to Justin several times over the weekend, and Justin is going to talk to his board, and if they agree to, then we're going to set up a joint meeting as we did with the other code issues to try to address some of these problems.
Sounds good. The challenge there, Steve, that I worry about is that we're now creating an incentive for people to walk inside, which is not ideal. So maybe there's given COVID, maybe there's another solution. I don't know what it is. I know they've got those great windows that they could maybe open and serve through those, but I don't know. I just don't love creating an incentive to have people inside. So maybe it's something we can chew on.
No, you're right. There should be a way to maybe create a service window, you know what I mean? And people could go up to it without having to actually enter the premises because of the, especially now that things are ramping up right now. But I want to figure out a way that we don't exclude Lock 32 from the use right now, or the patrons of Lock 32, because they, as well as everybody, deserve the same opportunities down there.
I think the other thing I'd like to add here is that if they do intend to serve in the tent or the future pavilion, it will require an amendment to their liquor permit, which I don't believe they have gotten so far, but they would need to do that to extend the service to that area.
Well, same with their special permit would have to be modified by you, the board. Renee?
I think Lily was right before me, so I'm gonna let her go and then I'll go right after.
I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't see. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But that's all right. That's all right.
Lily.
I just wanted a clarification.
Lily?
Yes, can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted a
Yes, we can now.
clarification. Okay. Regarding this application, is that the application is for an outside area open to the public and for any of the tenants of the Collins properties use? That's what the application is. Okay. I just wanted a clarification for that. So that would remove one of the complexities that you pointed out regarding the service from Lock 32, because it isn't in the tavern overlay, as you point out. So that would remove an impediment to their building of the pavilion and the
They're two separate issues, Lily. I just wanted to bring up the importance of us dealing with the code and the issues to, in the future allow them. But I am very adamant about the fact that, and to the planning and zoning, that this is a Collins application. Their property, their accessory structure, irregardless of Cole Tower, Simply Crepes, Aladdin's, Block 32, the ice cream place, anybody else down there. This is Collins's application alone.
Right.
So it
That
needs
put
to
us a
be,
little different lens on it. So that makes the path a little bit more clear. That's good.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
This is going before the planning board Monday, is that correct?
it's still
Or is it-
information. It's still information only before the planning board Monday. They're still missing some parts, but and this is something I'll reach out. I know Justin's listening in. I will reach out to him because it labeling it or defining it as an accessory structure allows it to be looked at as a minor site plan review versus a major. Removes some of the hurdles, I'll say, to getting the application through.
So is there anything, back to kind of where Dan was going earlier, what can we do? Is there anything we can do to tee this up for success at the planning board meeting so that we're not providing any stumbling blocks? Is there anything we can temporarily do to adjust the zoning code? And maybe this is a question for Jeff. Particularly, I am concerned about encouraging people to go inside because now you've just exposed all those people to the staff at Lock 32. It's a pretty tiny place. So allowing them to be able to serve outside makes a lot of sense for everybody. What can we do temporarily before we have this big joint meeting about all the things that are need to be corrected in the zoning code?
I think talking to Casey and creating a service window. I mean, that's the only, it's the only legal option we have right now. And
It's
like
a
I said,
short-term solution, but it'll allow continuity of the service so
Yeah.
they can get some more mileage, while the weather is not, 5 below.
right, and if you have a tent with an outside heater blowing into it, people utilize them all year round. You're not gonna go in there when the wind's howling at 15 degrees, but a 30-degree day, the sun's out, people are gonna want to have, and enjoy the area. I was quite impressed today, walking around all the people and the traffic down there. A nice day like today, I mean, there were hundreds of people enjoying, musicians down there. I mean, that's what this place is meant for.
Lily had a question. She had her hand up.
I do. And that is that I'm not seeing this as any different from, let's say, the Cole Tower. I do believe that's part of the Collins complex. Taking food from there and bringing it to the patio. What you're describing is a concern, a higher level of concern for people going into Lock 32, which is really space-wise and not much different than any of the other businesses there. So they would be subject to the same, or should be subject to the same level of concern that we're expressing for people going into Lock 32. As far as service there, it should all be the same. So if you're talking about a service window, I think we need to be prepared also to allow that service window at Cole Tower, at Aladdin's, at any of the other tenants on the Collins property. I think it should be even across the board and not, I understand what you're saying about the concern about going in to place your order and bring it outdoors, but I'm not seeing that as really any much different than walking into any of the other establishments and placing your order and bringing your food out to this nice patio to enjoy outdoors.
And-
Lily,
and
the
technically-
difference there is
technically
one is
right
inside
now-
and one isn't. So that
Yeah.
that's all it is. It's just extra caution. So
Yeah, and technically right now, there is no restriction on somebody going inside a restaurant to get served. There technically is no restriction. I mean, Block 32 has to maintain the same social distance, the same occupancy in the pandemic
Right.
as would Cole Tower, Simply Craves. And one thing while it's on my mind, before I forget, I'm asking that we extend, I believe the outdoor seating temporary thing, doesn't that expire very soon?
We extended
January.
it already, Steve. Yeah, we extended it.
To January.
Okay. All
Thought it
right.
was extended until April.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
did we?
I think-
I knew we extended it. I couldn't remember how long.
I think it was April, Renee. We said January at first, but then we thought it through and we did it longer.
I think
Okay.
it was 6 months. I think it was
Yes.
6 months from the last date.
All right, which is.
Yeah, that sounds right, Jeff.
Yeah, the tent idea will, like I said, we can help, or Mrs. Collins can help people now while we go through the process and get the other changes necessary to make a permanent structure down there.
If I could make a comment, thank you everyone again for the opportunity for this discussion. Steve and I just spoke about the tent for the first time earlier today. And I had a very preliminary conversation with Casey. So we haven't had much of a chance yet to digest that idea, but certainly appreciate that if that would work, if that would make it worthwhile, I can look into those costs. I think certainly for Block 32, we need to think about, is there a way that they can reasonably serve, if we're going to do this tent until the approvals for the pavilion, is it going to make sense cost-wise if they can actually serve out there or not? I have to be, as much as my excitement takes over and I want it there and I want to see I was just so thrilled all summer to go over and hear the, street performers and the energy, and I want to contribute to that and help it keep going, but we also have to watch our costs as well, to make sure that's going to be feasible. I haven't even had a chance to investigate the tent any further, but if we can, whatever we can do to clarify the serving options would be helpful to that discussion for us, to that consideration.
thank you. That's a great idea. One idea, I'm just spitballing here. This has nothing to do with anything. This is not me as a trustee. This is me as a resident. Maybe they could do a mug issuing to raise money for the tent, because I need a mug at Lock 32 and those things never become available, and it could be specifically for the tent. It's just an idea.
We take all fun, creative ideas.
Now, I guess I have a question. This would be for Jeff, and I guess I'm not quite understanding. Is it because it's not the tavern overlay that they wouldn't be able to serve out there? But what if the state liquor authority gave them permission to serve out there? Does the tavern overlay district? I mean, it's the same thing now. What about down at Label 7 and Olives down there? They serve outside. So what would be the difference? They are not in the tavern overlay district.
Yeah, but they're in the
I think the
restaurant.
one difference might be, Steve, Olives and Label 7 have gotten a special permit, and then we gave them the temporary use of those extra, outside areas for this season. Jeff, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, they're operating as restaurants, Steve. This is a tavern. And no matter what the liquor authority says, if it's not a permitted use, it's not a permitted use. There is no service in that area.
Okay, I'm just trying to, like Dan said, spitball, and figure out why, if the liquor authority said they could use the exterior area, if our code disallows it, that's all.
Just for
Tavern operations
clarification,
are not permitted in that area. That's the bottom line. The most logical thing I've heard, and I don't know what the expense would be, is the service window, because that avoids the transaction occurring out of the tavern district.
I did just want to add that the State Liquor Authority did extend their use outdoors. So for the, I understand what you're saying about the tavern, or I sort of understand what you're saying about the tavern overlay. But I do want to clarify that from the Liquor Authority, they were operating appropriately this summer.
Okay, any other questions on this? I think the one principle is that, you know, we've been sort of working our way through the issues here. And I think everybody is trying to problem solve and figure this out, and we will continue to do so in the most timely manner. So, you know, number one, to keep our businesses here and help them get through this crisis.
Absolutely.
Yes,
One thing I'd love to add is that Justin Valestra was on this call, and then he dropped off, and he just pinged me and said he's going to come back later. I want to go back when he does to Renee's point, which is, hey, what can we proactively do now to help usher this through? So we'll hear from Justin hopefully later in this meeting. So sorry, Frank, go ahead.
yes, if I can add one more comment. I've known some people that have been down in that area that have purchased food from the Coal Tower, and I think one from Aladdin's, and have utilized that area to sit outside, and they spoke very favorable of it. I was down there this afternoon, and there were a lot of people wandering around. My whole point here is that I don't want us to lose the idea that this area would be for the general public. I think, and not only that, but it would enhance the other businesses. Our concern is for making it easier for businesses to do business. And if we allow the other restaurants, the other businesses in the area to use that area, it would be very supportive of the existing businesses. That's the only comment I have.
Right on, Frank.
Great,
I would add that we've had a number of conversations that we don't want to in any way restrict who is using that space. You know, obviously as the landowner and the landlord, my preference is that it's the tenants right there, but there is no intent that someone is going to filter where someone's meal is from if they're sitting there and enjoying it. That's just not in the intent at all.
So
Thank you, Jenny.
one last question about I hear that the temporary tent can be put up soon. Is there anything that we need to do to help that along, Steve, or?
I think Steve can approve it. He can go ahead and approve the temporary tent.
Okay, great. So that at least gives us a placeholder and allows, gives us some shelter in the winter.
Yeah, and I just,
If Dan gets the fundraising idea going to help us with it.
There we go.
I do also want to reiterate that this was, and I told her earlier, I'm going to say it again, I hate saying this, but this was Dorothea's, she was very right on this, and this was Dorothea's idea for the tent. I did not think of this. We were brainstorming in the office, and she's the one who said, well, why can't they put up a temporary tent? And I'm like, that's a very good idea. So I'd like to take credit for it.
Dorothea.
Thank you.
Every time a squirrel finds a nut.
And one last thing, I'm gonna say thank you to myself and to Renee, because tomorrow is Veterans Day.
Thank you. Agreed. Thank you both.
Thanks to you, Steve.
I guess, and since you mentioned that, and Dan had sent out an email, I just wanted to clarify. Bill Smith told me on Friday that although the Legion is going to have a very small private ceremony They are asking public officials and the public not to attend in respect for the COVID situation. So there may be a few veterans across the street at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, but there is no public ceremony planned. Okay, all right.
you.
Anything else, Steve, before we move on to Zach's report?
I've got a question about Steve's report. Steve, can
Okay, go
you
ahead.
talk about the ongoing discussion with the dairy?
They, at this point, they done a couple of the items and they're still working on a plan as far as talking. I did talk to Charles and they plan on securing the older house before the winter. I will keep on that and make sure that that is closed up. The rest of the property has been cleaned up. And they are going to be forthcoming with a plan for the whole back area as far as I've been told.
My concern is that the violations will not inhibit the Christmas tree sale business.
Already approved, Frank, already approved and already planned. Mr. Jewett is already getting stuff set up and we'll be setting up as normal.
Okay, they're okay. One more question on the tequileria and the kitchen. Can you talk about the passing of food back and forth? How's that going to happen?
They were working out. I've been talking with Mr. Parinello, and they are receiving or about to receive an agreement from Mr. Newcomb to be able to cut a doorway between the two buildings. There's nothing in the fire code to prevent that. And as long as he has permission from Mr. Newcomb, they can create a pass-through between the new Mexican restaurant and Tequileria, which will serve the purpose of being able to have food. You're not crossing outside the building to bring food to the other side. It allows them to have a full menu. And I think it's a great thing. You know, I mean, there's plenty of places that have a bar and then you have food on one side. You know, you can either sit and have a drink while you're waiting to get your table, or when you're done with your food, you can go over and have a drink before you leave. So I think it's a win-win.
And the opening would have to have a fire rating, right, Steve?
No, there is no fire separation between that tavern and the restaurant.
But it's a property line.
Yeah.
Isn't a rated, I think a rated, you can make an opening, but it has to have a fire rating because it's crossing a property line. It's a party wall situation.
I'll check on that one, Bobby. You might be right. It might have to have a fire door on it.
I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay,
Right.
and I have a question also.
Here's the little caveat on it though, if things work out, Mr. Parinello is going to combine or buy the property and he will own both and then would combine so that would not be a non-issue.
That was my next question. So it would become one business
Yes.
with two rooms.
It's all hinging right now on the lease for chandeliers. Because
Well, it's only not an issue, Steve, if he re-subdivides it.
Correct.
So we'd have to make.
Mr. Parinello owns the yellow building, or what does he own?
He owns the Tequileria right now.
But Newcomb still owns the building.
The other building to the right, as far as I know, Mr. Parinello owns the Tequileria, the Blue Horn Tequileria. He owns that building.
No, I've talked to Mike Newcomb on Friday about that, and Mike Newcomb still owns the blue building.
I thought Mr. Parinello said he owned it, so I guess that's a different story.
Not according to Mike Newcomb, no. Anyway. Okay, anything else for Steve?
Well, that will require, that's going to require a special permit modification if they do that.
Correct, for the restaurant.
Right.
Like I said, that hinges a lot right now, like I said, on Chandeliers. If Chandeliers doesn't renew their lease, the whole deal is going to change.
Okay, all right. Good to know. All right, anything else, Steve, that you want to bring up?
Not
Thank you
this
very
one.
much.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, all right. Moving on to Zach's report. Zach is going to spend a little more time because he wasn't able to get the printed report out in time. So I'm going to turn it over to Zach.
Hi, everybody. I was
Hey.
5 minutes late to get my report to Dorothea before she sent the final email out to everybody. So I apologize. Just recently we had Bristol's come through and plant 6 trees for us. 2 on Washington Ave. One out in front of Utility to replace the dead Zelkova that was out front of there. And it's a 2-inch bore, so it's a pretty good sized tree. And
And what
2
species,
Zelkova.
what species were they, Zach? Zelkovas, okay.
Yep. And 2 sweet gums on Eastview Terrace.
Okay.
We had 4 trees removed. 1 was trimmed, and that was at the corner of Jefferson and Main. Let's see, truck 2 repairs. We've got a lot of repairs this month with vehicles. Truck 2 went out for repairs twice, both totaling about $3,000. The flush truck repairs are currently sitting at about $10,300. They're waiting on parts to come in right now, which was a hassle to find due to the age of the vehicle and just the lack of the parts available. There was a cheaper option for the parts, but the parts would have been manufactured and it would have taken about a week for each part in their 4 of them. So they wouldn't have gotten the parts until about 4 weeks from last week, which means that we wouldn't have gotten the truck back for another month and a half. So we opted with the more expensive parts that were available, and those they're still waiting on the parts as of Friday. They should be in there either today or tomorrow, and the truck should hopefully be back to us by the end of the week. On that note, while the truck has been down and out, we had to respond to 2 sanitary sewer backups, one being on Sutherland and the other one on East Jefferson and Rand. And that we had an assist from the town sewer department with. One was during the day and the other one was about 8 o'clock at night on a Friday. Truck 14 was also out for repairs. That just came back to us today, and the cost for that is about $2,300. We've been focusing pretty heavily on picking up leaves. As you can tell, they're mostly down at this point. So just in the last couple weeks, we've picked up 800 cubic yards of leaves just in the dump trucks, and we've been running the street sweeper also as an assist to the leaf pickup crew. And we've got about 250 cubic yards just from the street, along with sweeping all the roads at the same time. So we've got a lot of mileage. The tool cat was down with front suspension bushings that had to be replaced, so we went out and got parts for that. That was about a $230 repair we were able to do in-house, fortunately. I've been working with Mary to submit the forms to the DOT for reimbursement for the Village Growth project. The total cost of the project was approximately $32,355. That did not include the engineering services from Scott Harder. So we had budgeted $36,500, and I believe Mary had dropped those off yesterday or today. So we should be seeing some fund reimbursement from the state, hopefully by middle of December. I think I've got that right now. Last 2 weeks ago, when the last meeting, I told you that guys at Taylor Sipple had resigned that day. So he finished up that the first week of his 2-week notice and did not come back after that. So his position's void at this point. He is no longer welcome back, but we do have an ad out for a new position, and so far we've got about 5 or 6 applicants. So the next week or so, I'll start bringing people in to apply for this or to interview for this job. In the last month or so, I've done 13 utility stakeouts and design requests for DigSafe New York. Placed order for a street light that was destroyed in the motor vehicle accident on Monroe Ave. The street light is no longer being manufactured by the original manufacturer of the street lights. So we had to look elsewhere, and we finally found another manufacturer that's going to make something very similar to it, but they're no longer doing it in an incandescent setup. So the only setup to be able to get is an LED setup, which means it won't have a bulb. It's just going to have the diodes in it. I don't think the
That's
wash
fine.
of the light's going to. I'm sorry.
I was just going to recommend, Zach, there should be an option to have a soft white color that replicates the color rendition of an incandescent bulb, and that's what we should select in all cases.
The only option that they had for this was a 4000K, which is more along the lines of a white light, which is going to be similar to the metal halide that these LEDs that I've been retrofitting are along the lines of. I've been putting everything.
So it'll
in
match
it.
then. It'll match.
It'll be as close as possible, but it is what it is. I don't really have a whole lot of options at this point. But the light itself turned out to be $4,460, which I think Dorothy was having issues with finding the driver's proper insurance, but she was working on it, and hopefully that will be submitted to their insurance company, and we can get reimbursed for that.
Yes, unfortunately, the insurance agency that was given to the police report was in error. It was actually a municipal insurance company, which was very weird. They must have plugged in the wrong number. So this is going to take a little more legwork, and I might need an official letter from Jeff to go out because the person did not respond to the letter sent by the village to supply his insurance information.
Did you call the sheriff's department?
I did not call the sheriff's department. I don't know if they can recreate it or if they take a scan of the insurance card at the time, but whatever they punched into the computer brought up a municipal insurer. As a matter of fact, it was one of the ones that we submitted for insurance through our quotes. And they were like, no, we don't insure individuals. And I was pretty sure of that when I saw the name. So it's very confusing. So maybe we can reach out to the sheriff's department and hopefully they do take a scan or something because they definitely punched in the wrong code.
But they would want to have an accurate report too. So it would be good to let them know that there was an error anyway, in case they need to follow up at some point. But I think whatever I forwarded to you, that person, I think it would be okay if you contacted them directly. I don't think you need me to do it.
Okay.
Because they already know that it was for this purpose when I asked for it. So.
Yep. No, this all came to light recently. So I'll work on it and see what I can do.
Okay, let me
get
know.
it resolved.
I think the sheriff's is the place to go because they're going to want to have their reports being, as Renee said, and I think they'll chase this person until they get the right information. Maybe they won't. I don't know, but they're the right people.
Yeah, they'll have better luck than we will chasing down.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
I have repaired 3 village streetlights this month. Try to get a few more of them done before the cold weather and all the decorations go up. I'm hoping to get those done this week. I've called in 14 RG&E streetlight outages. They seem to have gotten about half of them done and are working on the other half. There are a couple lamp heads that are missing right now. They must do like I do and actually remove the lamp head and bring it in for a complete overhaul. So I don't know. Hopefully those will be up soon. We
Zach, I have a minor thing
on village properties and the 4 corner area sidewalks. Wood Creek Pump Station generator has been having battery charger issues. I got a hold of emergency. Yes.
I had one minor issue I wanted to add to your list. On the trail that connects the Auburn Trail through the DPW to the DPW driveway, that goes through the, what's that? Okay, on that trail, there's one large limb that's fallen across the trail, blocking it. I think if you could just have the guys just cut it up and push it to the side so the trail isn't blocked, that would be helpful. You know, if you follow the path that goes through the woods, sort of above the green shed, where that shed, just about where it starts to
Yeah.
head down the hill, that's where the fallen limb is. We can't hear you.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so Emergency Power Services came out today. You can't hear me?
It depends where you move.
Emergency
When you move
Power
back and forth, we
Services
can't hear you.
came out today to replace the battery charger and the battery on the generator at the Wood Creek Pump Station.
Zach, if you can kill your camera, you might save
I
your
hope you got
audio.
all that. I don't want to repeat it again. So the Wood Creek Pump Station, it should be back up and running fine. I haven't heard otherwise. I don't know where the microphone is on this.
It's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up terrible.
If you turn off your video.
Try turning off your video, Zach. That might help.
Can you hear
Look
me?
at the bomb and click off the camera.
I don't know.
Now
There
try.
we go.
That's pretty much my report. I tried.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Zach.
All right. I don't know how much you guys got the Wood Creek Pump Station generator. I've processed approximately 826 emails and made approximately 139 phone calls. And also, how long do you guys want to keep the porta potties around? Without having candlelight night, not sure if it's necessary to keep them here past November.
Candlelight night has been canceled. I think as soon as the weather changes, I think it's time to send the porta potties away. It's good that we
Okay.
had them there up to this point because it was very busy over the weekend. But I think any time now it would be appropriate to remove them.
Very good. I'll have it done.
Okay?
Any
Thank you,
questions?
Zach. Nope.
You're welcome.
All right.
Do you guys need
Moving on
anything?
to, I don't think so. I think you're good to go.
Very good. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Thanks again. Good night.
Thanks, Zach.
Jeff,
Thanks.
do you have anything to report?
No, it's just the ordinary stuff, calls and questions, and I just deal with them. There's nothing big on the horizon that I'm aware of.
Lily had a
Great.
question.
Go ahead, Lily.
Lily, you're muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
My member item involved Zach, but I guess Dorothea can just take a note and pass the information on to him.
Be happy to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Jeff.
No,
Anything else?
There's nothing of substance to report. It's just the usual run of the mill calls. I work with Steve on stuff, the HPV stuff, so nothing big's going on. I noticed ATP was on the agenda. I can speak to that, or we can wait till we get there. It doesn't matter to me.
Why don't we handle it now since you're here and we can talk about the public hearing. One of the things we've been wondering, we published our public hearing notice both virtually and in live. The town is planning to have a live meeting at the Fisher Room at the library, but given the recent surge, I'm not certain that will be possible.
Do we know if they published it alternatively or not?
They did not publish it alternatively. What they've seen on their website, if that's what they truly published, it's published just for the in-person meeting. I can reach
Well, I
out
don't-
to the clerk tomorrow.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm kind of worried about the surge too and pulling this thing off in person. That's problematic.
I think it's, I mean, we said this a month ago, it's ill-advised to have something in person of this. We know people are interested in this, so it's either going to deter them from coming and giving input, or we're going to have, you know, a mess of crowdiness. This is a perfect thing that can be done online. So I would like to push for it to be virtual, just like we have said to begin with, but I don't know if we have enough time, right? Do they have enough time to do it?
I think
gonna
they
be the
do have
problem.
enough. I think they do have enough time to repost their legal notice.
Well, it depends on whether or not the resolution supports it.
I'm gonna have to reach out to the clerk.
Well, Dorothea will check, but I agree with what you said, Renee. I think given the current situation, it makes more sense to have a virtual public hearing.
My thought would be that somebody should talk to Supervisor Smith, because I don't think, talking to their attorney will do anything if I were to do that.
I'll reach out to Bill tomorrow. I'll make myself a note and I'll call Bill tomorrow about it.
I think that's the best way to make it happen that way.
Agreed.
But other than that,
Okay.
once we actually have a public hearing, first order of business will be to finish seeker. I don't know that anybody's going to want to step in and object to lead agency, but I know the HPV last night said, fine, be lead agency. I don't know what the planning board's position is, but if there's no objection, we'll just work through part 2. And I'm thinking that the town attorney and I will agree on some responses to each of those questions, and the boards can just simply adopt that form unless there's questions. That should not be done until the public hearing is opened and closed. So you would conceivably use any information gained at the public hearing to flesh out any seeker concerns. There should not be any. And then the boards can go on to the business of adopting or not adopting the ATP. And that will be done by each board separately. It'll be a separate board action for each board.
And if there's a disagreement over whether the hearing should stay open, like what if one board passes it or approves it and another board doesn't, or wants to continue, leave the hearing open to get more input, or I don't know, I'm just trying to think.
It would be good if we were to stay in step on those issues.
Okay. I don't anticipate.
So I'm guessing that if one board thought it should be kept open to get more information, then it would be good if both boards did that. I mean, I think that
All right.
anything else kind of detracts from what is supposed to be the collaborative nature of this thing.
Right. I don't
Agreed.
anticipate that we would be out of step, but I just wanted to ask.
I think it's easy to stay in step, so that's probably what we ought to try to do. My biggest concern is whether or not the town has set this up or can set it up to be done virtually.
Yeah,
We'll find out.
Shouldn't be a
We'll find out.
lot of hullabaloo in it. So Jeff, also while we have you, Jeff, you missed the sort of kudos at the beginning that Bob gave around work on the comp plan and the award that we were given there, and you had a lot to do with that in the code review. So a special thanks to you as well.
Right, I had
That's
very
a
little to do
good
with the
point,
comp
Dan.
plan, but good. But
No,
the code
Jeff,
review-
you worked your tail off to get us through the zoning part of that process, which was very lengthy, and you did an extraordinary amount of work in a short time. So you deserve as much credit as anybody else. And I think we can all bask in the beam of sunlight for an evening because it really is a quite an accomplishment that we did in a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time.
I thank you, and I think it was a great process. It was painful, but it was great.
Well worth it. Well worth it.
Were you describing
And long.
Jeff as a ray of light or the process as a ray of light?
The results. The
Uh,
results and the accomplishment,
Yeah,
not going through the process, Dan, not going through the process.
I don't,
That
I
was
don't think
painful.
anyone has ever described me as a ray of light, frankly.
I've just changed your
Well-
name in my phone to ray of light.
Maybe a legal ray of light. How's
There
that?
you go. I'll take that.
All right, moving on, to the,
I have another question.
go ahead, Renee. Go ahead.
Dorothea, I noticed that the town still has the old version of the active transportation plan packet up. And I know they've been working on their budget and probably have other things to do, but I just want to make sure that we're, appropriately noting everything and all of that.
I did forward that on as you requested as well. I will follow up with Susie on that. I assume she would give it to the appropriate people. And I'll reach out again and see what's the holdup.
Okay, and maybe they've got it listed in 2 places or something, but like that main page that we've always used for that at the
Yeah,
time.
no, it definitely went over to them
Okay,
as requested. So I will follow up.
Do you want me to hang around, Bob, or do you want, that's it, all I've got.
I don't think there's much that we need you for. I think if you want to go, I think now we've covered everything.
Let me just make a point on the pavilion. I agree entirely with Steve's analysis that this is an accessory structure, which is really totally within the purview of the planning board. And it's up to them to process the application the way it needs to be processed. So I'm with Steve on his interpretation, not that I have the right to do that, but I was just saying that from a legal perspective, I agree with how he's interpreted this thing.
Thank you.
So that's all I've got. Everybody have a great night.
Okay,
you too, Jeff.
thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, moving on. Mary has the treasurer's report, and she also has some good news.
Yes, I do. All right, let's start with the vouchers. I have 85,758.70. I haven't omitted from your run an additional 3 vouchers that would be for Zach, Dorothea, and Steve. They each are supposed to get a $50 stipend this month, and I forgot to include that, but additionally to what I have here. From the vouchers, nothing really to write home about or be concerned about. 271 is part of the work that was done on Monroe Avenue for the drainage. I still have another bill for $8,500, but I haven't received the invoice yet. I have the estimate. The work has been done. I'm just waiting for that to come through. And on 277 is our annual contribution for the New York State retirement, and we're about $700 less under budget than what we had initially planned. So that's good news. That's it on the vouchers.
Great.
Mary,
I'll
So
make
I
a
need a
motion
motion
to,
for 85.
Bob, excuse me a
Go ahead.
minute. Mary, voucher number 266, you noted it as Harris for 2,101. What is that, Mary?
That's our flexible program for the sewer billing. So that's our support. Just like we have for Williamson Law Books programs, we have one for Harris. I misspelled it there. It's the support program for the function of the program itself, technical support,
Okay.
annual support.
Mary,
Okay.
do you want to talk about legal invoices next, or is that part of this thing? I just want to make sure you got all the emails that I sent just before the start of the meeting. I got
No,
approval
Dan,
on
I
everything.
left today.
Okay. Well, okay. Then do you
I
want
need
to go ahead, Mary.
Dan, I need a motion for the vouchers for 85,758.70, and then we'll move on to the outstanding bills, attorney bills, if you don't mind.
so move. Do I have a second?
I'll second
Do I have
that.
a second?
Yes, I'll second
Dorothea,
that.
would you call a vote?
Trustee Lampier,
Lanfear, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Stetser,
That's all right.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to the attorney bills. To answer your question, Dan, I left the office at 3 o'clock this afternoon, so no, I don't know which attorney bills you are looking to pay. So if you could
Okay.
please go through this
Yeah, sure.
list and let's
So
see
the
which
only
ones we
one-
can.
Sure. I'll read you numbers and amounts and which attorney it is, and then we can discuss it as a board if we want. It came back, look, guys, just so everybody knows, it came back from all the board chairs, and then Susan on sort of acting board chair on the 75 Monroe stuff. It came back with no changes. Everything was fine. The only one that did not make it into that batch, Mary, is the 1031 one from Turner's law firm. That just didn't make it into the batch, and I didn't want to confuse things with two of them, and it's a week old. It's not a big deal. The other ones were a bigger deal. So let me read those to you. Okay, ready?
Yeah,
Here are the ones that came in. I just want to make sure I
that
have
you're looking to approve for payment, correct?
that I'm not looking to approve for payment. I'm looking to say that it passed my review, and it passed the approval of the board chair or the acting board chair. Then I'm proposing it for the trustees to either approve or reject.
Okay,
But
so
follow the
yes,
process.
go
So
ahead.
here are the first two. It is Zoglin 777 in the amount of the current invoice is 1,600, and the total on that one happens to be 3,200. That was a regular planning board one for that Justin Valestra approved.
Can I stop for 1 second?
Yeah.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
When I list these bills out, Dan, just as an FYI for yourself, I'm only listing what the current portion is of
Okay.
the bill, not what is considered past due, because the past due we may or may not have paid. So in this particular instance, that additional 1,600 we did pay the last time around. So it's just 1,600 that I'm looking to get approved. I only want the current portion, otherwise I get very confusing on the amount of
I hear you.
money
Yep.
we're spending out.
Yep. So
Okay.
777 for 1,600 Zoglin, 828 for 1,600 Zoglin, and again that is just pretty standard stuff. Both of those were approved by Justin Valestra. The next one is let me pull it up. Bill McBride approved of. It was Osborne Reed invoice number 56746 in the amount of 5,937.50. Next is hold a moment. I'm gonna mute.
Yeah. Mary, we're going to mute you because you're overriding Dan and we can't hear Dan.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
It just stopped.
I don't know,
Okay.
I'm just sitting here minding my own business, listening to him.
I'll tell you what, Dorothea, can you mute everybody else just for the duration of this, just so I can get this information to Mary?
Yep.
And then we'll unmute everybody. The next one on the list is, so we got Bill, we got Justin. The next, there's a handful that Susan Loda approved. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. These are all Zoglin. Zoglin 836 in the amount of 1,248. Can you mute Mary? It might be you, Dorothea. There, it's gone now. Zoglin 783 in the amount of, current invoice is $2,444. Next one is Zoglin 781 in the amount of $78. Next one is Zoglin 758 in the amount of $453. Next one is Zoglin 726 in the amount of $63.50. And the last one is Zoglin 679 in the amount of $9,112. Those are the ones I have.
Dan?
Yep.
679, the current portion on that one was 594300.
Yes. Yep.
I believe there was also some issues on that one that needed to be resolved. I don't know if any of that has been addressed. And right now, I think it was to do with building inspector charges. You don't recall anything about that?
No.
All right.
So this
Is Frank still on the screen here? Because I'm not seeing him.
Yeah, I'm here. Number 679, that's one you're talking about. Part of that invoice goes back to August 5th. And that contains two issues that we've brought up previously. One was the cost of $2,017 for the taking of an affidavit from Susan Loda. We thought that was excessive. And the other one was a charge of $1,627. That was some research that the law firm did regarding site plans, and we didn't think they had to be doing any of that research. Steve is here with us, and Steve looked at that too, and we kind of questioned that, whether or not we should have been charged for that research that they did.
Okay, the board chair has approved those and as work that they requested. So I'm going to suggest, and that dates from work in July. So I'm going to motion that we approve that. It's water under the bridge. We're not going to get a refund on it. They asked for the work. The work was performed. If we'd like to adjust the expectations of what the planning board can and should use their attorneys for, we should chat with them about that. But I don't think we should hold up payment anymore. This is work that is almost 4 months old.
I personally like to know why they asked or researched the validity of building permits and who authorized that. That was the question at the last meeting.
And that's,
I'd
yes.
like to understand why they were looking to research the validity of building permits versus coming to me and trying to ask.
Yes, so that's understood. That that's not going to stop us from paying it, though. I believe we should pay it and get our answers later.
When this bill came in, the questions were raised then, and the point was, let's go to the law firm and ask them to provide clarification to these charges. One, why did it cost $3,016 for an affidavit from Sue Loda? And why did it cost us $2,000 for one of the law firm's associates to do research that our building inspector could do? These were the questions that we raised when this bill was new. We never got an answer to the question, and so now, because time has gone by, well, it's water over the dam, so let's pay it. I believe we should still ask the question before we pay it. That was the issue that was raised when this bill was new, and it's still being raised, and there's no answer to it. Somebody
Okay,
should go to
then
the
I'll-
law firm
then I'll
and
make a
ask the
motion.
question.
Then I'll make a motion to pay everything except those. I'll make a motion to pay every single one except Zoglin 679. Do I have a second?
Everybody's muted.
I just unmuted myself, sorry.
No.
I just want to be clear.
I'm not finished yet.
I have,
Oh, Frank.
No, wait a
So
minute.
wait, the discussion happens after the motion is accepted. So I made a
well-
motion. Is there a second?
There's two motions on the floor, so Frank has the floor. He can make a point.
My question is, are we just talking about invoice number 679 for 5,943? Is that your motion?
Yes, I'm saying every single invoice except that I'm making a motion to pay. So if you want me to list the numbers, I will, but it's every single invoice that we talked about except 679 is what I'm making a motion to pay.
Well, I have a question on another invoice.
Go ahead,
Are you
Frank.
ready? Invoice number 783. The current amount is 2,444. Of that, on 9/23, one of their associates, Bridget O'Toole, notes prepare proposed order for $598, and then right after that, no charge. So we're either charged for $598 or it's no charge. What's the answer? Mary, I think I brought that up to you too at one point.
yes, you did. Can I make a suggestion on both of these two invoices that you're questioning? I could go ahead and process payment for all the charges that are not disputed, but the ones that you have that are disputed, like the $578 or $98, or any of them with Bridget O'Toole, and the ones out of the other invoice that are in question, I think you said a total of $3,000. I can withhold payment on that portion of it, and pay the rest of the bill. And then someone can talk to Mindy's office regarding what those charges are and the validity of any of them, or the necessity of any of that. If that's just an option in a way to go forward with moving some of this money out.
That makes sense. And I think we want to get as many paid as we can, because I don't want to hold them any.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
hold any ones other than the ones that we have questions on.
Of course, agreed. Can you just give me like 90 seconds and I'm just going to do the math and see if they already have, whether they charged us that $500 or
Sure,
not.
we can leave. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
And also, while he's looking for that, on Osborne's bill, I realized it just came in the other day. The general labor is for $346.50. There was some questions on it. I think that's ironed out. It is a Board of Trustees charge, so would the board want to go ahead and pay that one as well for
Yes,
Jeff? Or
I believe we
do we
would.
need to hold
I
it?
believe we would. I think we can go ahead and pay it.
Mary, wasn't that for legal services provided by Christian Cassini? We had
That is correct.
yes, we had an employee question, and yes, that charge is justified.
We know what it is, right?
Okay.
Yes, we know exactly what that was for.
Okay, so the amount that does not include that $500 charge, and Mary, you can double check my numbers when you're back at your desk, but that amount is 1,846. So the motion then is to approve invoice 783 at a total of 1,846, which is the total minus the no charge of 598. Okay, everybody comfortable with that?
Yep.
Just a question to Frank. On that invoice 783, in addition to the 598, there were other charges from Bridget O'Toole. Are those satisfactory for payment, or do they need to be also withheld out from this round of payments? That was okay.
Reluctantly, I'm not going to raise any more questions. I think this work was done in relation to Judge Arks trying to find some kind of a settlement on 75 Monroe Avenue. The consensus was that we didn't have to do this. Well, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that in my eyes, I think this work was not justified, but I'm willing to go ahead with an approval.
Okay, so for that one invoice, as Dan suggested, we would go down to 1846 versus 2444.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve on the floor. We've had a second. So could we call a vote?
Sorry, who ended up seconding that? Because I didn't have a second.
I thought Dan seconded it.
I think Dan made the motion and I seconded. I can second again.
Okay, I missed that. Thank you,
There we
Renee.
go. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I seconded at the same time Frank explained that he wasn't finished, so we all halted at that point. So
Okay, thank you. Trustee
Okay,
Lampier?
then, just for myself to be clear, I am paying both of Osborne's bills. I am paying everything off of Zaglin's group except for the discrepancies that we mentioned tonight. Correct? Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Stetser?
that's all right.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, moving on. Zach touched on this a little bit in his report, but I got a breakdown for you in my report of the CHIPS. I did drop off the CHIPS submission paperwork to the DOT yesterday. So hopefully, and all things go well, we should receive back $32,330 against the project that currently is at $32,355. The budget was $36,500, leaving us under budget of $41,455. I'm still anticipating a few more invoices, including Scott Harder, so we should be pretty close around budget when we're all said and done. But $32,330, if all is acceptable to the state, we should receive that money back mid-December. That said, we had a total CHIPS pocket of $98,000. Of that $98,000, right now that we can go ahead and use after this submission is another $59,981.83. So that means that we have basically $59,971 that we can apply towards the purchase of the T450. We had budgeted also for a Kubota for approximately $8,000, which was a used piece of equipment. when Zach and I talked with the state about it, used equipment is kind of iffy because we're tampering into the life of the equipment and you can't replace it it's got to be suitable for a 10-year life in our possession. So the question will become whether or not you would like to go ahead with a new Kubota, which I understand is about $17,000, and or the T450 with possible attachments. So that's for another day's discussion, but I just wanted to throw it out there. For this fiscal year, additionally, we'll have approximately another $6,100 that we can apply towards equipment, but that is currently on freeze until Albany gives us the go-ahead, which may not happen until March. So I just wanted to let the board know that. So that's it with that one. And you have the CHIPS breakdown in your packet.
Great.
The next thing, I called the county today, and our sales check that will be coming out to us next week is coming in at $152,276.72, which by history is $82.01 more than last year's. That's like a real game for us right now. However, that said, the girl also told me that the numbers that are coming in for the next check that we should receive in February are really bottoming out. So she doesn't know where that's going to end up. But it just brings us $186,000 under budget right now. So hopefully the checks will be at least $93,000 each cut, which would be a big substantial drop from what we've received in the upcoming quarters, which was $148,000 last year and $139,000. So that's just an FYI. It was smart to have adjusted the sales tax figure down by the 20% like we did in the beginning, because it's giving us a little bit of a buffer zone.
So Mary, the question on that is the expected amount that's going to come in the future within range of that 20% cut that we had estimated?
Yes, and it could be more. She said maybe 20 to 30.
So it could be 20 to 30 less, and we budgeted 20 less.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
I just don't know. She doesn't know where it's going to fall out. She just said October and November so far look much lower than what last year during this time it is. So unless things pop up in December with Christmas shopping, we don't know how much of a savior that's going to end up being for us. So we got to tread carefully here and hope for the best. Any other questions? All right, moving on. The last little bit here is I put together the October 2020 numbers. I have no concerns at this time with the numbers that I do have. On the revenues in the general fund, our building permit number is gangbusters. We're at approximately 8,500 against $15,000 budget. Thanks, Pete, for that. Let me see. No concerns on the expenses. I have a couple of negatives, but I'm going to leave those lines negative for another month to see where we fall out with things. I still have to make a couple of transfer of things. In particular, I have the drainage category, which is at $21,260 against a $12,000 budget, but I have Monroe Avenue project, the one in front of Village Hall, and I think Locust Street is another one. So I will be, number one, searching the budget itself to see where I can grab some monies to apply against this. Otherwise, we're going to have to break into the reserve. But anyway, I'm holding off on that to the absolute last minute in the fiscal year. We also have money. We have money in the contingency account, which is at $26,000. So it should help to clear up some of that total. The difference between revenues and expenses, it's sitting at 460,000. So right now, like I said, we're good. Our unencumbered fund balance is 641,481.70, and we're still looking on track for 185.07 at 531. No issues with the sewer fund whatsoever, or the capital improvements. There's no activity that will reflect the payment for the bond when we get that posted. And then payroll is the last thing, and that is looking fine the way it sits. So that's it for me. An approval of the October numbers would be great. And other than that, I'm all done with my report unless anybody has questions.
Okay. So we need a motion.
Yep, it would be good.
Okay, I'll make a motion
Our
to
shoulders
approve
would
the
be very
numbers
happy.
that Dorothea has reported for October. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Lily, you're muted.
Lampier, second.
Thank you, Lily. Dorothea, would you call a vote, please?
Sure. Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Stetser,
That's our eye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby,
Corby, aye.
motion passes.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Mary.
you, Mary.
Okay.
On to the clerk's report.
Okay, yes, I have a few things to go over with you. We did the village insurance renewal. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have the unpaid taxes that are passed off to the county for collection. I need board approval on this. Also, I know the last thing you want to do is come into Village Hall, but we need to have everybody sign the certificate of village surrender, and that's a single sheet that has to be submitted with all signatures. So if I would say Thursday and Friday, if you're going to be around the Village Hall, if you can alert me, I'll be happy to bring it out, masked, and have you sign, and we'll get it done so I can get it into the county if that would be okay.
Dorothea, can you tell me again what that is?
What this is these are the taxes that the residents that didn't pay their village taxes.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
And being a village, we're always made whole by the county. So we have to submit to them so they make us whole, because
Okay.
it never builds up. So this is an annual thing, and this is the time when we send it over.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So if I can have a motion to approve that pass to tax, that
So
surrender.
moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second that
Have a second.
motion.
Okay. Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Keating,
I'm an aye, but where is that in the packet? I didn't see that.
it's under the department reports that if in the village after the bill pay, it was in there with the first release.
Oh, there it is. It's no, that's the insurance.
Then right after the insurance.
There it is. Unpaid tax detail. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Trustee
And I'm a
Stetser?
yes.
Okay, gotcha. Trustee Stetser?
That's our eye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes. As I said, if you're around the neighborhood, could you buzz me and we get you everybody to sign on this? I know it's difficult given the circumstances, but it is a formality that has to be done.
Not a problem. And if I forget, will you ping me on my cell?
Will do.
Because I'm underwater.
No problem. Okay, the next thing I need approval is the bond interest payment. I need to get this out by November 15th. So I need approval to pay on the bond the interest of $2,187.50. This is done by wire.
I'll make a motion to approve the amount that Dorothea just recited. Do I have a second?
Lampier, second.
Thank you. Could we have a
Okay.
vote, please?
Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Stetser,
That's our eye.
trustee Galusha, Frank, you're muted.
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes. The next one is the office staffing. The staffing crew met. We discussed the current situation and filling the position, Mary's position. Is Mary still here?
I am.
Okay, yep. With discussions, we're proposing to the board not to fill the treasurer position. What we're looking to do is fill a deputy clerk and have that person train under Mary, and maybe we can find a diamond in the rough, because finding a person to actually fill this position is proving quite difficult, and finding someone that has all the characteristics. So we're hoping we can bring someone in and train them and move them up within the time frame we have Mary, and maybe we can find a person to fit that bill. Mary, do you want to add to that comment? This was actually a suggestion from Mary, and I think it's worth pursuing.
Well, two things that I can add. One, by definition, my position is treasurer deputy clerk. So we're trying to fill a portion of my job with what we're proposing right now. This person would take off some of the pressure both off of me and taking care of the book things, and also off of Dorothea for like minutes and whatever, that we're really strapped in the office. It's really just her full-time and Linda half-time. I'm coming in to help out with some stuff, but we really need to have another full-time body in the office. So that is the game plan at this point, because that position would be much easier to fill. From the candidates that we did interview before, there were some that looked like they might qualify, although at this point we've got to recanvass again. So that's my 2 cents worth. I think we just basically really need the support in the office.
Okay, thanks. So the question for the trustees is this: what we approved in the budget, if I'm remembering correctly, is a part-time junior clerk. And so the idea that we would hire a full-time is uncomfortable for me.
Well, let me make that a little less
Dorothea,
uncomfortable.
I really would like to hear from the trustee. This is very awkward to talk about staff in front of staff, but I am very cost conscious about the money that we're spending on our office staff. And we are spending too much money right now. And the thought of hiring another full-time person in the office staff without removing anything is not what we budgeted for.
Well, we actually budgeted, I believe, for a full-time treasurer at a higher salary, as well as keeping Mary on part-time. That's, I believe, what we budgeted for. Am I correct, Mary?
That is correct.
No, so what we budgeted for.
Excuse me, let me finish, please.
Okay.
This would be actually a lower cost option, because we would preserve Mary filling the role as treasurer, and instead of it would put us in a more conservative, given the uncertainty in the coming winter and where we're going to end up in the rest of the year. This would actually, I think, cost less than the option that we had budgeted for.
Okay, so great. Let's see that on a spreadsheet. Let's see what the costs, what we budgeted for, and what they're proposing. And let's go from there. It's hard to talk about this without the numbers in front of us. If we could shuffle roles around and stay within budget, sure. If we're expanding our budget, then that's a different conversation.
I think we have a range of costs that the treasurer and the clerk have talked about in the research they've done for the position. I'm sure Mary could work up those numbers and provide them for everybody. So I think that's a reasonable request.
Actually, Dan, we're sort of flipping positions right now. Because what we put in the budget was for a full-time treasurer that was actually at a much higher rate coming in than me leaving to begin with, and a half-time position. So the half-time position was going to be at a much lower rate than what the treasurer would be. We're just flipping that around. It should sift out to be about the same or better. in the
Okay.
long run. Plus the fact that the position has not been filled since June.
Well,
basically
that's a
speaking.
separate issue. So that's our own not being able to execute on something. So let's make a decision with numbers in front of us that shows that this is conservatively, fiscally conservative and fiscally responsible, and let's go from there.
I think that's easy to do, and Mary can provide those.
Right, I've already had something worked up, but I'll elaborate on that and I'll bring it forward to the next trustee meeting, which is in December. And then at that point, you await a decision to go forward with whatever way we handle my job.
Great, thank you.
Is that correct? Okay.
Okay, all right. Anything
Okay.
else? Anything else from Dorothea?
Yes, this is a big issue. Village emails. As everybody understands, the village email system went down. I had phoned everybody during that period. It did come back after phone calls with Spectrum and a lot of work going on. Found out Spectrum is dropping the Exchange network from their offers. So we've been put in a position. I was not notified of this change, and I think it has to do with us being a governmental account. I think they neglected in notifying those accounts they were dropping the service because it became a value added service where they weren't really charging us. So they decided to get rid of them. So dealing with our rep, I'm trying to find out how long we have. We don't have long. They forewarned me we could be losing service anytime. I reviewed the company they recommended. I am not happy with that. I didn't like the way they came to us after the whole situation came up. I talked to Integrated. I have a much better price to move forward. I've already told them we are moving forward because this is an emergency situation. We can't afford to be without emails. So with that anticipation, I am hoping either by the end of this week or early next week to be transferring all the accounts to Integrated. What I'm forewarning you is we could have another 24 to 48 hours for that transfer to take place. And there might be a time where you need to change your passwords. I will keep the board posted. I apologize for this situation. I'm working as quickly as I can to resolve it, but there's a lot of minor things like transferring, not so minor, all our history, all our emails off of the archive system so we have them. That's needed due to FOIL and all the other things involved. So given all these steps, I am talking to Integrated every day. The one thing I am going to request for the board is an extension of our hours with Integrated because I have a feeling I am going to use them given the situation. And I apologize, give me 1 second. I had the sheet with my numbers and it's right here. So I am requesting the board approve me another 50 hours with Integrated. That'll be a cost of $4,250. We budget for this annually anyway. I just want to make sure I have the hours I need to make this necessary emergency thing happen.
So move. Do I have a second?
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Dan?
Thank you.
Trustee Lampier? Lily, you're muted.
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Okay, and just to give the board an idea, we should be looking for the cost of those emails. I'm working out the final details with what I signed with them. They're giving me the final quote. It is going to be probably around $130 a month, which was cheaper than we were paying Spectrum before they did the value added thing, but it's something we have to pay. So we have to have the service.
Do we need to, so two things for you, Mary. One of them is feel free to reach out to me rather than incur a billable hour with them if you want to bounce something around. I know a lot about this world, so if you want to just talk through something, I'm happy to help. The second thing is, do we, and this is a question mostly for Frank, do we need to go get a bunch of competitive bids on this? I know this is a passionate area of governance for you.
I'll have to think about that. Our procurement policy, I can't give you an answer. I'm gonna have to go to our procurement policy. I think it falls under specialized services, but we're gonna have to look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
It
I'm
probably
sorry.
at a minimum, I would think it would require writing an argument as to why their services, or they're qualified, and, you know, we have a relationship with them, they have information, but we would have to at least at a minimum do a write-up to justify that.
Yes.
Can I comment on this, please? Technically, I
Mhm.
do have 2 quotes, and one, this is an emergency situation because we could lose our emails at any time. I have no idea when they're going to shut us off completely because of the situation and the lack of knowledge. So forthcoming. So we could turn around tomorrow and not have emails. So I need to get us up and running, given that we're a municipality. So, and we need those emails. So I am in a crunch. So that's the way it is. So we have no choice. I mean, I did get 2 quotes, and I believe with the new procurement policy that's adopted, it does fall in the numbers for the cost that I'm proposing to the board.
Mary, I'll talk to you tomorrow and I'll let you know, Dan.
Okay, and that's
Thanks,
all
Bill.
I have.
Okay, all right, great. I update on the active transportation plan. We already talked about the public hearing. We know the planning board has signed off. They've approved a compatibility review with the LWRP. Do you have anything else, Renee, you want to add to that?
No, that was it. They
Nope.
were really thankful for all the work that we put into all the considerations that we went line by line and gave them feedback. And they did want to, they did underscore that they think it would be better, which we already knew, to incorporate that in the original document, which is going to cost us too much at this point. But they just wanted to make sure that was on the record again. And then they also wanted to know how best to submit input for the hearing on December 3rd or December 2nd. So I did want to, on the agenda item, I put on their planning for that hearing as well, because I just want to make sure when we advertise it or however we're going to get input, that we think ahead so that we don't have to sit there for hours and hours listening to each person. Because after a while that can get really difficult for other people attending. So I just want to make sure we give everyone an avenue to submit input ahead of time or after or whatever. So I don't know how we
Good
want it.
suggestion, Renee. Thank you.
Yeah, that's some restaurant quality iced tea there, Renee. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. So just in particular, I think they're going to submit that big packet of general information. So I think that's the bulk of what they want to submit as a board too, to make sure that gets on the record for the hearing.
Which we support.
Yep.
Okay, I don't have any updates other than the State Street Bridge was, I believe, closed today and yesterday for alternating traffic between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. Josh at DOT has promised that they're going to contact us in response to our last meeting. I haven't heard anything about that. We are waiting for that to be scheduled. Have I forgotten anything, Renee, that you want to make any points? No.
We will have an opportunity still to chime in on some of those things right there. I mean, my biggest concern is the tree where in certain cases where they're putting bump outs, they're going to have to take out trees. We understand that. And we already talked to them about one that they wanted to remove in front of the little White House for visibility. And we convinced them that that should stay for traffic calming purposes. And I think we should do our best to do the same thing at Sutherland and Monroe, because I don't think that tree should be removed. I actually think it's a good traffic calming measure there.
That's why I think we want this next meeting. And if they don't contact us, I think we'll push to do it. Because I think there's a level of detail that wasn't, the drawings we saw last time were schematic, and we really need to see detailed drawings to see what the impact on things like trees might be. So that's a very good point.
And they did say that we're going to actually walk some of these sites that we pointed out, some issues with your.
For example, on South Main Street, I think I want to see exactly how that crosswalk's going to fall, because looking at that area myself, there's a couple trees there that I might be concerned about. And by adjusting the location of the walk, they probably could avoid taking any trees out.
Yeah. That's, we
Okay.
don't want to be.
Can we move on to member items?
Yep.
Is there anything? Okay, good. All right, I'm going to start. I have a number of them. The first thing, there was a chamber meeting this morning. Given the recent surge in coronavirus cases in Monroe County, the decision was made this morning to cancel any celebration of candlelight night on Friday after Thanksgiving. The thought was that the chamber is going to do a video that will do a virtual tree lighting, so we may have a few of us at the tree, no carolers, those have been canceled, and they're going to videotape a few of the storefronts and stores and post that on their website. The next item I had is that Bill McBride has to have some significant a medical procedure done. He has tendered his resignation via email as the chair of the HPB. The HPB has had a discussion about who should take that. The person they would like to be chair is Lisa Cove. So tonight I am appointing, these are both unexpired terms. So I'm going to appoint Bill McBride to the alternate position and appoint Lisa Cove to the chair position. And then we will have an unfilled position that we will attempt to fill. And certainly, I guess we're putting a newsletter out, so we'll ask for submissions for people that are interested. We still have a list of people, and Bill has reviewed a list that he's going to forward to me so we can begin to conduct some interviews for that position. And I'll do that in concert with the new chair, Lisa Cove.
Sounds good. Before you move on there, Bob, is there anything we could do as trustees to support Bill, even if it's just some nice food or flowers or something, just to tell him we're thinking about him? He's been a really dedicated member of our team for a long time.
Yeah, well, I think he's been a great chair for that board, and he will be in that position for a while. I believe his procedure is going to be scheduled for sometime early next year, and then he will probably be out for several months because it's a major surgery. So he's going to the Cleveland Clinic to do some preemptive work, I believe in early December. But I think that would be a nice gesture. I agree. Thank you, Dan. This morning I talked to Susan Hughes, both to get an update on the bid for CCA. They've been in touch with Jewel. The current climate hasn't looked good, so they couldn't give me any information, but it's probably going to be at least a week or more until that bid goes out. I talked to Victor, I don't remember his last name, from Jewel and from Susan, also about the potential for us starting community solar. One of the questions I had asked before to ensure that we truly are being sustainable is that the solar farms that we would provide our power would not be located in areas of prime and unique soils or in an existing agriculture district. They're still doing research on that issue for me. As soon as I get the information, of course, I will share it with all of you. The other thing, I think we've already talked about this, but the planning board has requested that we reconsider the parking requirements for Shane Place. I also, because I did see the email from John Limbeck yesterday, and I have a number of things to report on progress as far as the issues on traffic calming are concerned. I know Dan had a request to cover some of that in his member items as well. So let me report my issues. The letter to DOT has been sent out. It took a little longer because I wanted to get it to review with Bill Smith, who signed off on it, because I did put language in there about the transition zones, which are located in the town. I did include, at Renee's suggestion, a copy of the information from the ATP regarding the increased severity of accidents as the speed of traveling cars increases.
Thanks, Bob. Question for you on that. I'm just tracking these items. So when did that go out? Was it this week, last week, something?
It was in the office. I don't know. I think the date of the letter was October 13th. I'm not sure when. I'd have to talk to Linda in the
Great.
office when it
And then
actually went.
the other thing is a comment more of anything, you know, I'm curious why you didn't circulate that to the other trustees so we could give input on it. It's just the kind of thing that we all care about and we can all help.
Let me explain what happened. I sent it to Bill Smith because I wanted to get his sign off there, and I'm sure he was overwhelmed. He didn't respond in a timely manner. So it sort of felt, I was expecting a response. I didn't get it. I forgot about it. And then we pushed it forward to get it out of the office. That's what happened there. Also, I've touched base with Carl Jones, who was the individual who attended our speeding forum back in September. I had a lengthy conversation with him. He is also willing to give a presentation to the board. I told him that I would ask you tonight. Is that something the rest of the board would be interested in? He gave me a ton of information. He's very knowledgeable about the technology of cameras and speed cameras. I'll share some of what I learned tonight. Maybe you want to, after I go through my list, you can tell me if you want him to attend one of our meetings. He's willing to do so. So let me just summarize what he told me. First, regarding speed enforcement cameras, one of the important points he told me is that in New York State and anywhere, the information that's recorded, if a speed enforcement camera records someone speeding with a license plate number, for that ticket to be prosecuted, it must be validated with a trooper or sheriff who saw the same thing. So it doesn't necessarily do much good. He told me, though, that many cities, including Washington, D.C., what they do is they ticket the vehicle as like a moving violation. So it's not the driver necessarily that gets the ticket, but it's the owner of the vehicle. That's how they get around that. So there's some more investigation that's necessary there, but it's not necessarily a silver bullet that we were hoping for. He gave me information, which I have right here, and if any of you want to look at this, I'll leave this in my mailbox in the office, which has information on a variety of speed sentries. In talking through with him the pros and cons of the most effective speed sentries, here's what he recommended, which is a pole-mounted sentry that has a flashing light and a strobe. The flashing light gets drivers' attention. The strobe makes some drivers think that you're actually taking a picture of a car. They actually don't do that, but he said the data indicates that those are the most effective. The other option he had is they also have, I think he called it a speed deck, which is basically like a gray box that they can put on a utility pole, and it records the data, like some of which Dan had compiled before, on vehicle speeds in an area. The benefit of this is if you have a situation like we do where we don't have the manpower to have adequate amount of speed enforcement, this machine will tell you exactly when the worst speeding happens, like say 3 a.m. in the morning. So the sheriff's department can target their enforcement to the times that the data indicates that it's a real problem. So with the pole-mounted speed sentries, there's several options. You can get them solar powered, which in many of our locations that probably wouldn't work because we don't have either the room, and in many cases there's trees that would make that probably less than successful. You can get them hard powered or you can get them battery operated. I asked him to go ahead and provide a proposal for how much these things can cost as we move into budget season with different options. So he's providing that information, and I should be getting that within the next 2 weeks. The other thing he said is he does have some samples that he would be willing to put out for us that we can use. He has a handheld radar data thing. I'm not sure how much use that would be to us, and I was going to ask Renee if you thought there's any use for that, or if Brooke wants to take that and hold it out on State Street. that is available. You know, I'm sort of on the fence. We could talk to the people in State Street and see if they want to try to use that. But I think to try to get one of the speed sentry lights on our poles temporarily, I think we probably all would be in favor of that.
The that handheld thing, we have done experiments with it. I think one of Brooke's neighbors has one, and unless we talked to the sheriff about it, and unless they're calibrated appropriately, you know, there can be some varying degrees of accuracy there, and it requires that someone's out. We did it just to be fun, and I've actually sat out on my road with a blow dryer before and a little vest. My old neighborhood, and it actually deters people, but you can't, it's not like an effective thing. I don't, I mean, we might want to borrow that here and there just to see, but I think it's better to have something that can do a high volume of traffic at once to collect the data.
That was kind of my intuition as well, Renee, but he did mention it, and so I wanted to put that out there. That being said, would the rest of you, would you like to have him come to a village board meeting or a special meeting and give a presentation?
Please, sounds great.
That'd be great.
Yes, I'd like it.
Yeah, how much it'll cost.
Okay, then I will set that up. The other thing I didn't have time between last evening and tonight to respond by email to John Limbeck, but I will do that. I just wanted to make the point for everybody that DOT has a very precise format for when they take public interface. Renee and I have asked previously if residents could attend the meetings they've scheduled with us. DOT's answer has been a firm no. And there will be, I believe, one more public information session regarding these improvements as part of the State Street project. But I just wanted to, I don't want to create false expectation. I know everybody's frustrated and we all want to move this along as quickly as possible. But there's only so much influence that we have. And I can say that Renee and I have sort of gone to the mat with both Josh and Kevin Bush at DOT to try to get accommodation of what we think should be done. And even though they've sort of informally told us no on things like the crosswalk at State and Shane Place, I still put that in the letter to everybody because Renee, myself, and I think David Cruz at SRF all agree that that's something that should happen, as well as a few other things that we've been engaged in dialogue with them.
Yeah, so I had a question about John's email. So he's.
Go ahead, Renee. You're next on the member item list, so,
okay.
So go ahead.
Well, he said that the letters being suggested in the mayor's communication below speak of transition zones to be considered. This is not what we asked for or discussed. I thought in one of our meetings with the State Street neighbors, or it might have been the speeding forum, one of them, it was suggested by the neighborhood that the speed coming into the village on State Street was lowered. Am I misunderstanding where that recommendation came from? I mean, we recommended it in the active transportation plan, but I also believe that was a request by the State Street neighbors.
You are correct, Renee.
Okay, so I guess I need some clarification on what he means by that's not what we asked for.
I was going to ask him in the letter because okay. And maybe I've got to look at Dan's outline because I think that's recorded in Dan's outline. Yeah, and I was confused by that as well. The other thing too, I wanted to just, I don't know if I said this before, and excuse me if I'm repeating myself, but previously we had pursued like doing a median at the gateway there. And we had a meeting, we set up a meeting with DOT specifically to investigate the feasibility of doing something like that right outside the village line. And because to meet their highway standards, you'd have to widen the road because the shoulders have a slope to them, that the projected cost, and this was probably 4 or 5 years ago now, was about $250 to $275 $1,000 for one median on State Street. And so obviously the cost of an actual median in gateway treatment, like we have spoken about, is a very long-term thing that we're really probably going to have to find some either grant money or member item to actually make that happen. It's a great idea. I did speak with Bill Smith. He's very much on board with the whole concept of a speed transition zone. He's had many complaints from neighbors at the Wood Creek neighborhood about the safety of that intersection. And so he's in full support of our, and actually the letter I sent to Kevin Bush, I copied Marge Burns, our assembly person, Mike Pirro at the school district, and Bill Smith.
Okay, and thanks, Bob. The thing that jumps to mind, obviously, is the $250,000 number. That's what we spend. That's about what we spend on lawyers every year for 75 Monroe. So maybe we could solve that and free up some money to be able to do these kind of things. It's the opportunity costs of the 75 Monroe challenge.
Well, I think to be really realistic about it, Dan, I think the best analogy in our experience is the project we did at North Main Street and Washington Road, where we eliminated a turn lane and created a park and doubled the width of the median for that used to be 2 lanes in each direction underneath the railroad bridge, and we necked it down. But by piggybacking that and the new curbing on Washington Road that was installed with the DOT's paving project, we saved, I don't know, probably close to $80,000 on the project, and only had to pay for the additional curbing. So I think at that time we spent about $24,000, which would be obviously much more today. But to really make this cost effective and feasible, we're going to have to piggyback on one of DOT's projects to get it done. So, and I think the important thing here is that, again, we're a partner with other agencies that we don't necessarily control. And so we have to be realistic about the expectations of short-term versus long-term.
So Bob, can you clarify one thing? You said that if we find the money, the funds for some sort of treatment to do something at the gateways, a physical treatment, whether that's a median or something else, that if we had the money, DOT would approve of a project like that.
I think, we've had previous discussions where they were supportive of something like that. We actually went there with drawings and photographs of projects that had been done in the city of Corning, and another project on Route, I believe it's 9A or Route 9 that goes into Saratoga Springs, which had been a 5-lane road, which they converted to a 2-lane road with a center-wide landscape median. So those were kind of the examples we were going for. And I think we could probably get it approved. The main impediment is the funding.
So if they are repaving that section in 2022, I don't know if COVID's going to slow them down, but right now that section of state, I believe, is undergoing resurfacing in 2022. So if we could get funding and try to work with that resurfacing, that would save us some money.
Yeah, I'm just not optimistic about getting funding given the fiscally strained situation New York State is in because of COVID this year. That's my hesitation. Otherwise, I would say, yeah, let's do it. Let's go get some money.
Doesn't mean we can't try. All right. Well,
we can try. We can try. But I've talked to NICOM about it, and they're pretty pessimistic about our chances. Okay, Renee, do you have other member items? Yeah, you had bike share on your list.
Yes, I met with Sarah from Hopper, the bike share system that's working with RTS to provide bike share stations in the community mobility zones or mobility hubs. And we did a walking tour and came up with a set of locations proposed locations, and she's taking it back to the team at Hopper. And I just wanted to keep you guys informed. She wanted about 4 to start, 3 or 4. And so we looked at the library and or Shane Place, not both, and paying regard to Towpath Bike to make sure that they had that on one of our first meetings. We mentioned that we want to make sure that we consider their rental and how that might impact them if they were to place a station on Shane Place. So it's either library or Shane Place. The Nazareth bus stop at New England, because the town of Pittsford owns that little brick pad, I believe. So we could put one easily there. It's huge. Town Hall or Village Hall. Town Hall has more room for placing a bike share rack. It would probably just be, 4 to 6 bikes, if even that many, depending on what their studies.
We have that brick pad out in front, which is not a bus stop anymore. And
Right.
I like the location in front of Village Hall, number one, because it brands us as the walkability experts. But
Right.
number two, because it's midway between the canal and the Main Street Business District.
Yeah, so they're looking at, she's gonna get out and take some measurements. The downside would be we'd have to give up our hard won bike rack out there. So we'd have to give that up, but
Well,
I think
we'll find another location because we're not gonna lose the bike rack. Don't worry.
yeah, the PR it would be a great thing to have in front of Village Hall. I agree with you. We talked about Pittsford Plaza, but the problem is the infrastructure. That would get more people to use bikes as transportation as they come off the bus. But the problem is, where do you go from there? Because the infrastructure is a little hairy down there. So we'd want to, that one will probably be later on the list if they're going to start with 3 of them, 3 or 4 of them, and then maybe even one at Lock 32, not the brewery, but the actual lock, because people would use them for recreation. So Brighton, their stations are primarily geared at recreation, and ours would be a mix of transportation and recreation. So those are the potential locations. And if you have any feedback, let me know, because this is still all preliminary. But that was from our initial walkabout.
Those make sense. So you're gonna refine them and then come forward with a proposal.
Yes, they're
Great.
gonna.
Thank you.
Yep. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Renee. Next, who else has member items? Dan, I know you had some stuff that you emailed.
Yeah, so we've covered a couple of them already. One was the CCA and the other was the Shane Place Pavilion. So I just have a couple of kind of following up on the Speeding Summit action items. You've already covered a bunch of it. Thanks, Bob. Let me just go down this list. The transition zone, I know you had Bill Smith on board with that. Was that part of your communication with DOT?
Yes.
Okay, so I can say that was part of DOT communication. That was in there. Okay. Next one, Carl Jones. We've already talked about speeding cameras. Renee, one thing, I know you talked to Captain DeLizer. I think next on the list was Main and Line. In your next communication with them, can you talk about that particular location, please?
And what am I speeding?
Yeah, just they'd love to, the local residents there would love to see somebody issuing tickets there.
Okay, great. I'll let them know.
That's on the entryway into the village, as you Brooke. Okay, so the Speed Sentry, this came from Tim Galley. This was moving around the Speed Sentry. Zach isn't on the call anymore. I haven't seen that thing moving around recently, so I'll check in with Zach on that.
That shouldn't be a problem, and it is a good practice to do that.
Yeah. This was one that the longer I think about it, the less I am sure about it. This was Dave Armini, who is the Director of Health and Safety at RIT, kind of offered to talk to us, and I do think that's useful. We also have a couple of really good experts on the board, so I'm going to leave that to Renee or Bob. If they want to reach out to Dave Armini, he offered. If not, that's okay. The things he was talking about were things that were very comfortable in your vernacular. So I may move that down to a less prioritized.
Okay, I had the same, you assigned that to me last time, or
Yeah.
Paula told me, I can't remember. Either way, I had the same thoughts, just about what we were gonna gain from that conversation,
Yeah.
given where we are. I think it's always valuable to talk to other people. So, but I think it's lower on the list. I haven't had time to reach out to them yet.
Yeah, I've got a new category in this thing, which is like active items, completed tasks, and then not back burner, but longer term and still needs to happen, but might not be an immediate thing. Bob, was part of your letter, did that cover Brooks, you know, cause célèbre around, you know, the numbers on if people are hit by a
Yes,
vehicle?
that's what he put in there, that
Okay, so
chart.
that
from
is
the
in there.
transportation.
Renee reminded me to put that in there, so I did stick an attachment in there that had that
Okay, so
from the
that's
active transportation.
Okay, so that was weaved into Bob's. The next was David Levine. This is speed humps near bump outs near Rand. Come up with ideas. I think that's one that we could put on the longer term and needs to happen category.
And I think just knowing what we do about, Dan, if I could just make it a little more precise, I think
Yeah.
based on our discussions on South Street, probably the long-term solution for Rand might be the consideration of speed cushions like we've proposed on South Street.
Yep. Okay. And that was one of them. Okay. And then I think the last one was, did we ever get a definitive answer? And this might be another Zach one on the from Caroline on Maple Street. This was the 20-mile-an-hour signs had moved on South. Do you remember this one?
He had not, at the last
Oh,
meeting, he had not found a location yet. They couldn't find a piece of property that's ours, that's the village's, that they could put it on, or a pole. So he's still, I will try to touch base with him about that one, because he usually tells about, oh, Lily might know.
Lily, go ahead.
I have a note from Caroline, since you mentioned it. We think that both the stop sign and the speed limit signs have had a positive effect. There is still a learning curve with the stop sign. Lots of people don't stop. I think it would be very helpful to add more 20-mile-per-hour signs, especially a 20-mile-per-hour sign when entering South Street from State Street, and possibly at near Maple Street or Boughton, like there used to be. I'm not sure why it was taken down. We do appreciate all of the efforts the trustees have made. I hope that the rest of the village can benefit from reduced speeds as well. I've had only one neighbor complain that the car noise level is now greater at South and Maple since cars rev up after they have slowed down or stopped. No accidents yet that I know of. John almost witnessed one when a car didn't stop on South and a car turned from Maple Street. Luckily, the car from Maple was able to get out of the way. And that was from Caroline today.
Can you send, Lily, can you send that to Zach, so that he has the suggestions there? Because I know a lot more signs have been added, including some of those pedestrian crossing and all sorts of things. So that may be why there's no real estate left. And that's not my bailiwick, so I don't.
Yeah, I think that was his issue.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I will send that on to him.
I'd like to make a comment. I don't go through that intersection as often as I do Sutherland and Lincoln, but I've been impressed by almost everybody I've seen stop at the new stop sign at the Sutherland driveway. I think that's been a huge improvement. The other thing that I think has been made a big difference is we had a request to put a yield sign in that crosswalk at Lincoln and Sutherland, and that has made a big. People tend to come to a full stop much more than they used to. They used to just slow down and then keep going through the intersection. So I think both of those things were useful improvements to make.
Yeah, and they're not stopping. I mean, not everyone. As I observe, I added that to my running route, and there are people who kind of roll through the the stop at Maple. The good news is they're slowing down. So before they used to just go, 45 miles an hour through there. At least now they're slowing down a little.
If that's a problem that people aren't stopping, that might be a good one, because there are places where you could hide a sheriff's car and then nab them. So
Yeah.
that maybe that's another thing to, yep.
That's
Good,
another one on
good.
his, on the list. So I'll remind him about Maple and South.
Okay,
Great.
so that was all I had on that specific one. My other member item is my same statement that I read at every trustees meeting, which is that I am still in favor of negotiating with Mark IV directly. The last we spoke of this was in the winter of 2019, and the idea was to have Bob, me, Susan Loda, and Bill McBride sit down with Mark IV. The idea stalled. I would still like to make this happen. Otherwise, we're waiting for the legal system to solve 75 Monroe, which we've seen no sign of, and it's incredibly expensive. Again, as you recall, the negotiations would be non-binding, as the subboards are the ones with approval.
Yeah, and I guess I just would respond briefly to that, Dan, that we know that Friends of Pittsford Village, the Planning Board, and the Historic Preservation Board, none of them wanted to enter additional settlement talks because of, number one, the legal expense is a given, and number two, the promising settlement that was suggested by the court was not followed through by the applicant. They didn't provide anything that came close to meeting the premise of a settlement. They came back with something that was far less. And without the engagement and agreement to engage from the parties that have jurisdiction in the legal disputes, I don't see what role we would have, because we really need to get their support if we're going to move forward. So I don't think any of us are against settlement. I'm certainly for it, but we need an active partner from the applicant who will negotiate in good faith, which unfortunately has not happened before. And we also need the engagement of the other parties that are involved in the pending litigation. And without that, even if we want to move forward, we really can't force that ahead.
Okay. I hear you, and I completely disagree.
Okay,
So-
well, okay. All right. Anything else tonight before we adjourn? Yes, I see a hand.
Dan,
And I see two hands. Yes.
Dan, there was one item on the to-do list that was assigned to me that was pending last time, and it's been done, and that was the post on Walk Bike Pittsford of all the different improvements to the crossings for the nice up. So that's been done. I want to cross that off the list there.
Yeah, no, I had already
Lily,
moved that down into the completed section, so we're good. Thanks.
Lily, you had your hand up.
I have member item, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I was hoping that Zach would be here, but this would have been a long haul for him. And that is that when we spoke at the last meeting, we talked about adding more lighting, holiday lighting. And so I looked into that at several locations and was not feasible. In front of the Phoenix building, the trees, in my memory, were a lot smaller, and they're very tall, and there's no way they could have reached us even with a lift. So, okay, even though Mr. Newcomb agreed to allow us to put another outlet there. So then I researched putting the lights in the trees on Main Street and or added to the poles. The poles will not take, it would, as he pointed out, certain amount of money to add the electricity to those, and the trees also no way to plug them in. So I am requesting that Zach do some research and supply to the board an estimate for electrical conduits to be placed on Main Street that would allow the trees to be lit. And since we're having work done by the DOT next year on South Main Street, it might be an opportunity to make that happen. So Frank and I have discussed this, and he would be the liaison with Zachary to get some estimates to have that work done. And then we can present it to the board.
Great idea, Lily.
Great.
Okay.
We talked about
right.
possibly some additional ones at Shane Place as well on those. I know those trees are smaller, and we might have the same electrical problems, but I don't know if we wanted to push that till next year.
Well, I think
So
if we
let's-
get some
okay.
unit pricing on conduit and adaptation of the poles, we can get a unit cost and then we might have to phase it. But I think it's something that we should definitely move to. If Fairport has it, it certainly would increase the impact of our holiday lighting. One of the decisions, because Zach looked at the feasibility of lighting the ginkgo trees with a lift, just was not going to work because of different obstacles. So what we did
Yeah.
decide to do was restore lit wreaths on South Main Street between the Bank of America and Lincoln Avenue this year to give a little more punch to the holiday lights than we had a year ago. Okay. Any other?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, I see your hands. Go ahead, Steve.
I had one other thing I forgot from earlier, only because I had a situation, I've had it twice this week, on the canal path. You're not supposed to ride bikes between each bridge. I actually watched somebody almost hit a carriage, a baby carriage. I had a gentleman yesterday who was riding on down right in front of Aladdin's. I asked him respectfully, I said, can you please walk your bike? He respectfully told me to stuff it. Went off in between Aladdin's and Lot 32, went around, went through the parking lot down at the bike shop, came back right at me. And then said, what are you going to do about it? And respectfully, or I had reserve enough to not forearm him off his bicycle. But I've seen, especially when the weather is nice, I've seen a lot of people and people ripping down through there with people walking on bicycles. So the thought would be, and I don't know if this is feasible, possibly some sort of a gate at each end to force people to get off their bikes. I don't know if anybody else has seen or has seen it happen, but as I said, because the weather is nice, wintertime it's going to slow down, but I watched 5 bicycles rip through there yesterday with a lot of pedestrian traffic, ladies with baby carriages, weaving in and out of people. I don't know the board's thoughts on that.
I think you're right on the money, Steve. We used to have some bollards that were on the approach from North Main Street for that purpose. And when we put in the East Pavilion years ago, we actually we put that bend in there to get people to try to dismount when they came from underneath the State Street Bridge onto that section of the towpath. I think, Renee, in your contacts, do you know of like a cycling expert that could help us devise some traffic calming for that? I think we actually need, as Steve suggests, some physical barriers in that section to get people off their bikes. What do you think?
And that's canal property, right? So we could actually,
Yes.
the canal the Erie Canal Way, oh my God, what are they called? They're on Facebook.
The Canal Corporation. The Canal Corporation.
Not the Canal Corporation. The people who are hosting the Bikes Are Good for Business. Oh my God, why am I blanking on the name of it? The tourism entity of the Canal Corporation. Anyway, they're promoting bicycling right now, and
The Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor.
Oh crap!
National Heritage.
Is it? Well, okay, whatever it is, I'll find out because I don't want to
Okay.
toggle out of my screen because I'll get distracted and go on Amazon or something. But they are doing a lot of promotion of cycling, and this is that we would have to get their permission, the Canal Corporation's permission to put anything on there, right?
Yes.
So they might have some solutions, but
Doubtful.
All right, yeah, let me find out some information and see what would be recommended, and I'll ask our cycling coordinator at Reconnect Rochester.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Renee.
One more thing.
Okay. Yep. Go ahead, Lily.
I have one more thing. I'm sorry.
ahead.
We received an email
That's
from
all
Fran
right.
Kramer. Okay.
Mhm.
We received an email from
Oh, the
Fran Kramer.
mask issue. Thank you for bringing that up. Yep.
Yeah, and so I did print out, but I didn't send it out to everyone. There was a reason why I did not. The ordinance from Alexandria, Virginia, that's a city ordinance regarding masks. And I don't, in looking through it, I didn't see that it was any different than what the governor has, the outlines that we already have in place here. And strictly speaking, people are to be wearing masks on the canal path because it is a linear park. And as it is a public park, you are required to wear masks. So the problem is really one of enforcement. And that's what
I did, the other day, I did ask, because of the surge and because of the correspondence from Fram and one other person that I received, I asked Zach to take our extra social distancing signs and post them along the Shane Place section of the towpath to remind people to be conscious of it. I think today there was, Fran sent another email, there was a group of kids that were running, I believe, that were not maintaining social distance and may have not been wearing masks as well. And that's, we've had, in the past, we've had groups from Nazareth that have been doing that in the village. That happened before they had a spike there on the Nazareth campus. So it is an issue right now.
So the answer is that as we, as a municipality, may we send a letter to Nazareth and to St. John Fisher and advising them that their students, when they leave campus, should be wearing masks as per mandated by
I've
the
already been
governor.
in touch with them and shared the concern that we've had with the kids running through the village and not maintaining social distance requirements. Already done.
And
Okay,
all the Sutherland cross-country kids and other sports have to wear masks. So I see them running all the time and they've got their masks.
And I've also, because we've had concerns with kids running through, it turns out the kids that were identified were from Nazareth. And I talked to Mike Piro and he assured me that their guidelines do require the kids to wear masks and to maintain social distance. Okay, anything else? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
I will
I
second
have a
that
second?
motion.
Dorothea, would you call the vote, please?
Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Stetser,
That's her eye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby,
Corby, aye. Thank you, everybody.
motion passes.
Good evening.